Hello everyone, welcome to my review of Season 3, Episode 6 of Gotham, titled Mad City, Follow the White Rabbit. Before I go any further, I just want to say that there will be spoilers in this review. The title of this episode is a direct reference to Alice in Wonderland, because as we saw at the end of the last episode, Jervis Tetch, aka the Mad Hatter, is still out there running amok in Gotham. And now he is zeroed in on James Gordon, who he believes was responsible for the death of his sister, who he has this extremely weird and obsessive emotional attachment to. In this episode, he has decided to essentially mentally torture James Gordon by giving him a series of ultimatums that he has to choose from. And as a result of his decisions, a lot of people end up dying, which puts a lot of mental burden and strain on Jim Gordon because he first and foremost still has that police officer mentality, so his number one inclination is to save people. And in this episode, he's put in situations where he can't save everyone. See, in this episode, he's given the ultimate ultimatum for him, and that is choosing between his past love and his current love, Lee Tompkins or Valerie Vale, and he has to choose which one lives and which one dies. And it's very interesting that he chose Lee Tompkins to get shot versus Valerie Vale. Whether he knew that Jervis Tetch would have shot Valerie over Lee Tompkins, and that is why he chose that, or if he still genuinely feels a great animosity and confliction towards Lee Tompkins. What is also interesting is, where do we go from here? Because I'm kind of assuming that Valerie Vale is going to survive her gunshot wound. It was a gunshot to the abdomen, it wasn't a fatal shot to the head or to the heart, but you don't just introduce this character and then kill her off in the first 6 episodes of the season. Also, what does this now mean for Lee Tompkins and Jim Gordon's relationship? Because as we saw at the end of the episode, they kind of have to discuss this because that was kind of a very serious situation. Also, Jervis Tetch is still out on the loose. Once again, he escapes Jim Gordon, he escapes the GCPD, and he is still out there, so we're probably going to see him in the next episode because we're back to kind of this 2-part episode story arcs that Gotham employed with their first 4 episodes. And they kind of skipped over for the 5th one, but now it's employed back again where we're getting kind of a setup episode and then a conclusive episode afterwards. And I'm curious, are they going to continue to keep dragging this Mad Hatter storyline out? I mean, how many times is he going to escape the GCPD? How many times is he going to come back and torment someone? I know that is a constant kind of thing that happens in the Gotham world, specifically when it pertains to Batman. His rogues gallery constantly comes back and terrorizes him and terrorizes the people of Gotham. So while that was going on in the episode, and that really was the main plotline or main story arc of this episode, there was also a plotline with the Penguin, who is now having these romantic feelings for Edward Nygma, which I think we really saw in the last episode and some episodes earlier. We saw that he was having these type of romantic feelings for Edward Nygma, because he's never really had those types of feelings before. At least we haven't really seen that on screen. So it's kind of very new for him, and he's very nervous about how to deal with them. He wants to tell Ed how he feels, but every time in the episode he tries to, he can't because he just can't build up the courage enough to do so. And what is interesting is that when he does build up that courage at the end of this episode, Edward Nygma runs into a woman that reminds him a lot of Miss Kringle. Miss Kringle, a lot of people remember, was someone who Edward had a relationship with last season very briefly, and who he actually ended up accidentally killing when he was having his psychotic episodes. To me, this woman is very suspicious. Specifically, in this Gotham world, every character and every person introduced serves a purpose. They're not just in there randomly, and I think that this character is possibly a plant by Butch to get back at Edward Nygma. This is his big way of getting back at Edward Nygma for what happened in the previous episode. I know on the internet there seems to be, a lot of talk and discussion anger, controversy about making the Penguin a gay character, but for me the Penguin has always been an asexual character, so having him be gay is not really a big issue for me. I mean, Robin Lord Taylor's interpretation of the character kind of leads towards that way anyway, so it doesn't really matter at all. What at least I hope they do is they utilize the Penguin's sexuality in a positive way when it comes to the storyline and what they do with it. I hope it's just not there just to employ more romance into the story, because we already get so much romance with specifically Jim Gordon's character and a little bit with young Bruce Wayne. So if they're going to introduce a romance type angle to the Penguin character, at least have it serve the plot in a good way. We also got to see a little more develop with Captain Barnes when it comes to his exposure to Alice's blood. We're seeing that his powers are slowly starting to manifest into something more. We saw in this episode when he tried to interrogate that person that Jervis Tetch hypnotized, and we saw that he was starting to morph into something, and he's starting to utilize massive strength. So perhaps my theory and others' theories that he may be slowly morphing into Solomon Grundy may be true, because if you are familiar with the Solomon Grundy character, he is this big hulking type figure, and Captain Barnes has that type of stockiness in his frame. So perhaps that is where they're going, perhaps it's something different. Overall, a decent episode of Gotham for me. There was a lot of great things when it came to Jervis Tetch's character, specifically with his jigsaw-type puzzles when it comes to dealing with Jim Gordon. There was also a lot of good tension for a show that you know a lot of the main characters are probably not going to die anytime soon, at least. So you got to see a lot of good character stuff with Jim Gordon specifically, and also with the Penguin you got to see a more kind of softer emotional side for him. It's going to be interesting seeing where that goes from here, because I don't think Edward Nygma is going to reciprocate the romantic feelings that the Penguin has for him. So that's probably going to lead to another plot line, another storyline, where he may take revenge on Edward Nygma because of that. This episode was, yet again, more of a setup episode, because it really did end on a cliffhanger with Valerie Vale in the hospital, so we will get to see the conclusion of it in next week's episode. This has been my review of Season 3, Episode 6 of Gotham, titled Mad City, Follow the White Rabbit. If you like this video, please check out my other episode reviews of the other superhero-related television series.